We're coming to you live from quarantine, and this is not our usual setup. As you can see, we don't have a bookshelf. We're not at our apartment, so we just like brought like a bunch of our books, like almost all of them, and now we're quarantined at Sam's mom's house, so... We thought we would, just do one of those, like, tier videos because those seem to be going around and very popular at the moment.
Also thought it would just be fun to, like, go through all the books that we've ever read. These are not just exclusive to fantasy series. Some of these are standalones, but just thought it would be cool and fun to do while in quarantine.
Yeah, so we did like, the tier maker, and then we have, how many tiers? 7 tiers. So our top tier is the God tier, almost God tier, great tier, good tier, meh, bad, and trash. So yeah, these are all the series that we're going to be ranking. Well, most of them are series, like Sam said. Some of them are standalones, but there are standalones that we have like strong opinions on, so we decided to include them. So without further ado, we'll start with Ember in the Ashes. Ooh, okay. Wow.
I want to say great for that one. Like,
I can't try it. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Great? Really?
You think
that seems kind of low.
You think almost God?
I think almost God.
Okay.
I'm like...
I feel like I need to reread it because, like, when I first read it, I was, like, in love with it, but, like, looking back at it, it's like, I feel like there were more problems that I had with it in retrospect, but it's been so long since I've read it that I feel like I'm downplaying its greatness in my head.
What are these problems? I've never heard of these problems before. Do tell.
That's the thing. It's like I don't remember a lot that happened because it was like over a year ago now since I've read them. But no, I definitely do agree that it belongs like in like the higher up tiers. I'm willing to compromise.
I think it's better than great, personally. Like,
okay.
That's Ember in the Ashes is up there. Ooh, okay, wait, you didn't read Divergent, right?
I did not read Divergent.
Okay, well, I read Divergent, and I don't know why I read the whole thing, because I didn't like any of it, and it just got worse and worse and worse. So we going right down to the trash tier. It's garbage. I really don't understand why it was so hyped up. Like,
It kind of felt like Divergent was just trying to ride off of the success of the Hunger Games.
It was, yeah, and it failed miserably. I'm surprised that the book got as popular as it did.
I'm surprised the movies kind of took off and then, like, crash landed.
Failed epically.
Well, I have no desire to read Divergent, so...
Don't.
Alright. The next book we have is Uprooted by Naomi Novik, which I want to put in, like, God tier, personally. No, like, I love this book. This is, like, one of Naomi Novik's standalones. It kind of, like, follows, like, classic fairy tale tropes, but there's a twist. It's not quite, like, a retelling because it doesn't follow, like, any specific, like, fairy tale, but I really enjoyed it when I read it. It's got great atmosphere. I would gladly read it again. This is one of my favorite books of all time.
I have not read it.
Yeah.
But I will. I'm just, like, not, like, a super hardcore, like, fairy tale, like, retelling person, and, like, I know they're good, so I will definitely, like, get around to them eventually. It's just that, like, retellings aren't, like, you know, like, the highest on my list, so I have not read them yet.
Yeah, I'm not big on, like, retellings per se, but that's kind of why I like Uprooted, is because it's not, like, a fairy tale retelling. It's just kind of, like, a play on different, like, sorts of fairy tales. It was cool. I like it.
Okay, well, next up we got Shadow and Bone. Okay, like, disclaimer, I read the first one, and then technically, I guess I, like, DNF'd the second one. Like, I didn't do it because, like, it was bad. It was just because, like, I was busy and, like, not kind of in a reading slump. But
I have read all of them. Like, every Grisha-verse book there is. I would say that the Shadow and Bone trilogy is my guilty pleasure.
I'm hovering around good here.
They're a guilty pleasure. They're not the greatest, but I do think, like, Shadow and Bone is also another one of those trendsetter books.
Yeah.
In terms of quality of the story, though, I think it would have to be good.
Okay, I agree.
Like, it's good, it's not great, but it's fun.
It's, yes. Okay, next up. Okay.
I just finished this.
Yeah, Sam is reading the second one right now. Mm-hmm. So oh god, wait, now I have to scroll back up. Okay, sorry, it does not deserve to be down there.
No.
Okay, so we probably up here. What do you feel? What are your feelings?
I would also agree with Almost God and God Tier. Like it's like Name of the Wind is so famous. Like I feel like objectively it belongs in God Tier, but like subjectively, like according to my opinion and having just read it, I would say Almost God.
I agree with that.
Okay,
I agree with that. Because like it is. It is very hard to like live up to the hype, and like yes, it is a very very great book, and like I love it, but it's not like, oh my god, like I just like this is my hands down like all time favorite series. Like I really really liked it, but it's not like, you know, something I would like keep reading over and over again, like, you know, every year. And
it is kind of at a disadvantage too, because like it's not finished yet, and usually the final book kind of like makes or breaks it.
Maybe once we get that third book, it'll be up in God Tier. Okay, and you've read this one. I haven't read this one.
I've read Cersei. I genuinely really liked it. Like, it surprised me. This is another standalone. It is a retelling, and like I just said, I don't normally like retellings, but I did really enjoy this one. I'm gonna put it in great, because again, like it wasn't like mind-blowing or anything. It didn't change my opinions on retellings as a whole, but like it is a genuinely very, very well-written book. So there you have it. You should read it.
10 it's good. I brought it to quarantine, so maybe I'll have to.
Oh, City of Ghosts. This is by Victoria Schwab. This is her middle grade series that she just started like last year? Year before?
It's been a while. I don't know.
The third book is coming out, so I think like 2 years ago. But this is cute. Like I'm gonna put it like strongly in like good. Like it's a good like middle grade. It's a really fast read. I recommend it if you like are in a reading slump and you just want to get through like a few books really quickly. Like middle grade is like a good way to go, I think. But yeah, no, I just thought it was cute, and like every book takes place in a different location, and the first two books are in Scotland and in France respectively, and so like because Victoria Schwab has so much of like personal attachment to those two places, like she puts a lot of love into it in these books, and it shows, and I loved it. You read it knowing that the person who wrote it also like shares the love of the history. So yeah.
Oh boy. Well, next we got okay, like I really don't know how this series has like endured over so many years. But like I have very strong feelings about Eragon. Well, I don't know if they're very strong anymore. They were very strong at the time I read it. I just thought this was like the most unsatisfying series ever. Like I spent weeks reading all those massive books, and then just like everything you want to happen like doesn't happen. Like it was just very frustrating, and I was like so ready to like throw the last book across the room. It's like you can tell that Christopher Paolini was like really like young and like inexperienced when he wrote this, because he just didn't really understand like human emotion. Maybe that's changed. I know he wrote a new book. I don't plan on reading it, but maybe he has improved, because it's been a very long time since Eragon has come out. But yeah, no, he just like, it seemed like he is the type that, you know, like just spent his whole childhood in his bedroom writing, and so he never actually interacted with people, so he couldn't really write like in-depth characters that like give you like the emotional stakes that you want. So I don't know if it's quite at trash, because there were some parts in the first book that I enjoyed. Like the first book wasn't all bad, so I'm gonna go with bad for Eragon.
Eragon's another one of those books that I missed out on reading when I was younger, at the proper age demographic. I own the book. My dad bought it for me, and I never read it. But I have read some excerpts from the book, and I know that a lot of Christopher Paolini's criticisms is that he reuses phrases over and over again. So I think, like, I mean, just to give my 2 cents on it, like, it deserves a bad tier just because of, like, the writing is so amateur.
He was, like, only 16, I think, when it was published, because his parents, like, own a publishing company or something like that, so it shows. It shows.
All right.
Oh, boy. Well, okay. I feel like this is also, like, a series that, like, a lot of people on Booktube, like, really love, but, like, I hate Fallen Kingdoms, okay?
You put this on one of your series that you're not planning on finishing.
Yeah, because I hate it. Because incest is never a good plot line, folks. I hate incest, okay? There, I said it. I don't like it.
I don't think that's a controversial statement.
But people like the book. And I'm like, why? Because here's the thing. Like, it's not really spoilery because it happens at the beginning, but it's like the main character is low-key, like, attracted to his sister, and he's like, oh my god, this is so wrong, like, she's my sister, like, I shouldn't feel this way about her, and I'm like, well, that's creepy. And then, like, ooh, I don't know, like, that's kind of a spoiler. No, okay, well, spoiler alert, skip ahead.
Spoiler alert.
But, you know, it turns out they're not actually siblings, how convenient, and it's like, nah, like, you were still in love with her when you thought she actually was your sister, so, like, to me, that's, you know, that's still incest, so, not a fan.
No bueno.
Not a fan, so we going right down to the trash tier.
Harry Potter, though. For me, like, this is, like, non-negotiable. This belongs in God tier, because Harry Potter, oh, God, okay, wait. Can't spell.
Yeah, you gotta, like...
Yeah, no, like, Harry Potter defined so much of, like, not just my childhood, but my adult life. Like, it has influenced a lot of, like, my taste in fantasy. Like, this got, like, me introduced into reading. Like, I love this book. I have a shrine of Harry Potter books. Like, I love it. And controversies aside with J.K. Rowling, like, I know she's kind of fallen off the deep end with her fans. I have never seen a fan base collectively divorce themselves from the author so quickly as the Harry Potter fan base did, but, like, Cursed Child and Crimes of Grindelwald does not change anything for the original series. I love it. It's perfect.
Yep. Same. It's, to me, it's, like, the ultimate, like, baseline story for, like, all stories.
Yes.
So, yeah, no.
Modern classic.
It's staying up there. The next series is one I just finished yesterday, actually. Which is The Demon King by Cinna Williams-Chima. And I thought this was a really solid series. I started off and I was like, oh, this is, like, okay. I gave it 3 stars, the first one. And I was like, you know, like, the world building could be a bit better, but, like, I really like the characters, so I stayed for the characters, and, like, it was totally worth it in the end. So I think, like, it's a solid, like, great tier. Good series. Cool. Good series. I very thoroughly enjoyed it.
And next we have is Furyborn. I did not like this book. I know it was kind of met with mixed reviews when it first came out, and I definitely see why. Like, I personally don't really understand the hype. This was such a nothing YA book. Like, it wasn't, like, the worst thing I've ever read, but it was, like, it just was kind of dumb to me. Like,
meh.
I gave it 2 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, which normally indicates that it's a bad book, but, like, I don't think it's bad enough for me to be like, yes, like, I'm condemning you into the bad tier. Like, no, like, I think it does belong in meh, because I'm indifferent to it now. It did not leave an impression at all, and I'm not planning on continuing it because I don't care.
Alrighty, and now we go to, okay, like, there's no contest here. We go into the God tier. I love Percy Jackson. It's, like, one of my all-time, like, favorite series. I reread it, like, all the time. I've probably read this series over, like, 20 times. I was reading it in Spanish this morning. Like, I love Percy Jackson, and it was, like, one of the books that got me, like, really hardcore into reading and, like, made me love, like, great characters, and it's just, it's such an important book to me in my life, you know. I know it has flaws, but, you know, it's fine. I'm willing to overlook anything because I love it.
I actually read the full Percy Jackson series for the first time, like, last year. I was late to the game. I'm really glad I read it, because I had always meant to and I just never did. And it is one of those, like, childhood defining books that is still being talked about today. So absolutely, like, I'm not going to dispute you on the God tier.
Good.
But, like, subjectively, like, because I was late to the game and I didn't read it probably when I should have, I would say, like, if it were up to me, I would put it in, like, almost God tier. but like I just don't have that nostalgia factor attached to it. But like I'm gonna leave it in God because I know of how influential it is, and I respect Rick Riordan. He's a cool dude. I like the concept. Like the concept that the Greek gods are still out there, they're still having demigod children in the modern day is a cool freaking concept, and I'm shook that it has not been used more often. But good on you, Rick Riordan, for jumping on that.
And if I ever met Rick Riordan, I would probably cry and be like, you changed my life, because this book is probably why I ended up going into film. So, you know, like, Rick Riordan, like, chose my life path for me, basically, when I was, like, 12 or 13. So.
We had an opportunity to go to one of his book signings, but she missed out.
I was busy because, you know, I chose a career in film and you don't get any time off.
Graceling. I haven't read Graceling.
Okay. I read this back when it was kind of like being hyped up. I only read the first 2. I never finished the series because I didn't like it as much as everybody else. And I don't think I feel, like, strongly enough anymore about it to put it in, like, trash tier, and especially because, like, I didn't even finish it. But I think, like, I can confidently put this in, like, bad. Like, I thought the characters were just, like, meh. The world building was just, like, meh. And then it did the thing that I hate, where it, like, changes main characters in the second book. And, you know, like, I was like, oh, maybe I could have, like, become attached to the original main character they had in Graceling. I don't even remember her name anymore. Had I had, like, you know, a second book, you know, of character development, but then they changed the main character, then I was like, I like this character even less, and then I quit. I know it comes together in the end, but I didn't care enough about either storylines to, you know, see them come together.
So King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. This is the first book in her Nikolai duology, which is a continuation of the Shadow and Bone trilogy and fits in with, like, the whole Grishaverse. I feel bad for saying this, but I think it belongs in meh because it kind of disappointed me. It's, like, I just don't think I don't know why it needed to happen, because, like, Shadow and Bone, for, like, all the criticisms that the last book got, I thought, like, it did not need a continuation at all. And King of Scars is that, and she, like, brings a lot of things back that it's like, this had a fairly decent resolution. Like, you're dragging it out too long, and also, like, I love Nikolai, like, he's one of my favorite characters in the Grisha trilogy. But, like, he was not the main character of this book. He just wasn't. This book was about Zoya, and I don't have a problem with Zoya, but, like, that's not what I signed up for. So, also, just meh. Like, I'm gonna finish it when the next book comes out, but, like, it's not the greatest thing I've read.
Yep, and I haven't read it yet, because I still haven't finished Shadow and Bone.
Ninth House, on the other hand, by Leigh Bardugo, is her first adult series that she's writing. I finished this, like, December last year. Really, really good. It surprised me because there were so many, like, mixed reviews about it. Like, a lot of it had to do with the triggering content because, like, spoiler alert, also, like, trigger warning, like, it has a lot of sexual abuse and sexual assault in here. People being drugged and, like, forced consumption of human waste was a big one. And, like, it put a lot of people off. But I feel like if you hear those trigger warnings and without any of the context, it'll turn you away. And it kind of did that to me. But I read it, and it was not as bad as I think people were saying. And because of that, like, I went in with low expectations. It exceeded them. It's a good story. I like the characters. I'm into it. I want to find out what happens next. But because only the first book is out, I don't know how the rest of the series is going to go. I'm going to put it in great. It might get better. We might have to do another one of these in the future, like, after, like, we finish more of these books. But Ninth House is good. I say it's great. Solid, good book. Liked it.
Okay, well, the next one I haven't read.
Oh, yeah, I also read Game of Thrones. And I'm not going to put it in God tier, because I haven't finished it. I loved the first 2 books, like 5 stars for me. I'm absolutely planning on continuing it. They're really big chunk books, and so they intimidate me. But I'm going to put it in great tier for now, because I've heard mixed things about the last 2 books, and I'm kind of scared. I don't know anything about it yet. I just right now love them. They're, like, one of my favorite series so far, even though I've only read the first 2, but I don't know enough about the rest of it to, like, put it any higher than that. So
I might get around to Game of Thrones eventually. I don't know. Like, I really like the TV show, but I don't know if I like the story enough to, like, dedicate myself to, like, all those books, and especially because, like, I don't even know when the series is going to be finished, you know?
That's true. It's another one of the, it's like the trifecta of authors who just don't finish their series, which is sad, but that is, such is life.
Alrighty, well, next
Darker Shade
we
of
got
Magic.
Darker Shade of Magic, and okay, like, I'm gonna go up here. I'm gonna put in almost
I agree.
God.
I would also put it there.
Because this was, like, a great book. Like, I had been in, like, kind of a very long reading slump, like, kind of when I started college to, like, it really, like, you know, got me back into reading, and so, like, I was very grateful for that, and, yeah, no, like, it's got a few flaws, but I'm, you know, I can overlook them because V.E. Schwab is, you know, great.
This is also, like, one of the books that got me back into reading after, like, I stopped for, like, a large gap in my life where I just was not reading any books, and then Dark Shade of Magic came in.
Well, because I read it, then I was like, you should read this.
And I'm like, you know what, I'm interested, and it had a cool concept, so I read it, and I also really liked it, but for me, like, where it kind of fell flat was in the third book, where the saying, like a series is just as good as its villain, and I thought that the villain in the last book was really flat, and didn't care for it. The book kind of suffered because of that. So, great, I love it, but it's not quite God.
Yeah, and I just, like, the thing, like, it deserves, like, almost God because the world building is so great, and, like, the characters are also, like, amazing. I love all the characters, and just the idea of, like, having, like, 4 different Londons and, like, traveling between them, like, that is really cool. Like, I love it.
Yeah.
I eat that shit up.
And, like, there were, like, a couple characters that annoyed me in the beginning, but I came around to them, and that's why I think that it deserves almost God as well, because not many authors can make me come around to a character that I previously was annoyed by. So, there we go.
Oh, wow. Next we got Prince of Thorns. I don't know, like, I feel like this one's not, like Mark Lawrence books aren't super popular on Booktube, but I kept seeing his books, like, on Goodreads, probably because I'm, like, friends with Mark Lawrence on Goodreads, which would explain a lot. And so I decided to pick up Prince of Thorns, and I actually ended up, like, DNFing it. I'm between meh and bad on this one, because, like, I know a lot of people do like it, and it definitely has, like, some, like, good moments. I'm gonna put in meh. I think it's a solid meh. Yeah, no, I just, like, I didn't like the main character. Like, he just felt like this very, like, spoiled, entitled, like, brat, and, like, wasn't very dynamic, and I didn't really buy, like, the world building. I wasn't really able to, like, visualize anything very clearly. And I don't know, maybe it was just the time in my life that I read it, and it is better, but yeah, no, that's also, like, I got so close to the end. Like, I have never DNF'd a book, like, so close to the end of it. I normally DNF it, like, 100 pages in, and I was probably, like, less than 100 pages away from the ending, and I was just like, nah. So
I haven't read it yet, but I really want to, because I really want to read more Mark Lawrence books. Like, I've heard, like, some of his series are great, and some of them, like Prince of Thorns, is, like, a little mixed, but, yeah, I'll take your word for that. And the next is The Near Witch by V.E. Schwab. So, like, I don't know, like, not everyone might know this, but, like, V.E. Schwab goes under, like, 2 different names when writing her books. Like, she's either Victoria Schwab when she's writing her middle grade and YA books, and V.E. Schwab when she writes her adult books. And The Near Witch is, I guess it counts as, like, an adult, like, standalone fantasy. This is also one of the first books that she ever had published. And I think it's like, either between meh and good for me, because it was a little, like, I don't know, what's the word? Like, not rusty. It was just not, like quite
amateur.
A little. Like, it wasn't quite as polished as her other books were. It was still good. It was a really good, like, first novel, but it wasn't, like, the incredible, like, debut, like, amazing up-and-coming author books that, like, some other, like, other books that you might have read. So I think it was it was meh for me. Like, good, not great, but it was like, I'm glad I got to read it just to see where like V.E. Schwab like started out and see, like, appreciate how much she has improved over time.
Okay, well, this next one needs no introduction. Going right to trash. Yeah, well, okay, I have not read the whole series. I only read the first one, and I really didn't like it. Like, I picked it up thinking it would be, like, a fantasy novel, and then it ended up being a bit more, like, modern than I expected. Like, I was picturing, you know, it's like this kind of, like, medieval world, and then it's like, I don't even remember the main character's name now. Oh, Mayor Barrow or whatever. And it's like, Mayor, like, looks at the TV screen next to her, and I was like, what? So I guess I just wasn't really sure what to picture, and then I didn't like the characters. Like, I didn't think the plot twist was all that twisty. This isn't one of those other books that I didn't understand the hype for it. Maybe I'll do, like, a reread sometime soon, and Sam can too, 'cause she bought them, and then we can do, like, a full review on them. But yeah, I just thought, like, the plot was very, like, basic and, yeah, superficial, and yeah, no.
I'm hyped. I'm personally hyped because I've heard everything. I've heard all the criticisms, and I'm just ready for it.
Yeah, no, I think if we read it, like, together, it'll definitely be one of those things that it's, like, enjoyable because it's bad, kind of like when we read Cruel Prince.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And speaking of trash books, we have the Queen of Trash, Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. You can't get more trash than this. But the thing is, like, we have recently rewatched all the Twilight movies. I was a hater back in the day. I hated Twilight when everyone else was reading it. I was like the Team Tyler's Van person. Like, I read all of them. So Stephanie Meyer got the last laugh out of me. But I read them out of spite, and I hated every single one of them. But now looking back as an adult, I just kind of take it for what it is, which is like a really harmless, cheesy, fun, like, teen drama. It's bad, but it's not like as god awful as from what I remember it. It's just if I were to read it again, I would read it ironically and kind of laugh with the book. So
yeah. Same for me. Like, I read these in, like, 6th grade when they were popular, and, you know, I also appreciate it because it was one of those books that got me reading, and I wouldn't have, like, read Percy Jackson probably had I not read Twilight. But I was, like, super into it, though. I was hardcore, like, Team Edward. I've been to Forks, Washington 2 times. I have a cardboard cutout of Edward Cullen in my parents' basement. Like, I was a fan. And then, obviously, like, I grew up in that. I'm like, wow, this is ridiculous. But I still, like, appreciate the time period it was, you know, in my life. Because it was nice to be a part of a fandom. It was kind of the first time I'd ever, like, been a part of something like that. So, it was, you know, I appreciate that stage in my life.
I salute you, Twilight. You belong in the trash, but I respect it. Anyway, next up is a book that is definitely not trash. I would put this, The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern, in almost God tier. It is very good, and I didn't like The Night Circus, which was her first and only book at the time before she wrote the Starless Sea, and I didn't like it because I honestly thought it was kind of boring, but The Starless Sea I read because I was still interested because The Night Circus was just so well written. And when I read The Starless Sea, it just kind of swept me away, and maybe it's because I went into it with lower expectations, but it was just such a beautiful book, and I don't really have anything else to say about it without giving anything away. You have to read it for yourself. It's a nice, feel-good, like, rich story appreciating book, and I know that probably is a jumble of words that doesn't make sense until you read it, but yeah, like, almost God. I highly recommend it. Please read it. Do yourself a favor.
Alright. What do we got next? Oh, Children.
Oh, okay. Also, this is a book I read. She didn't. And yeah, no, it's bad. I don't like it. I'm not, like, no. I'm not even gonna, like, give it the benefit of just a meh. Like, I didn't like it. It was very, like, Tomi Adeyemi has admitted that she is a big fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender, and you can tell she's really trying to channel that energy and that chemistry between the characters in Children of Blood and Bone. It did not work, and, like, I'm also, again, spoiler alert, but, like, it made me angry because Tomi Adeyemi had the, like, opportunity to create something great, and, like, the character of Enon and Amari and Zane and everyone else, they were the heart and soul that held this book up for me and kept me reading it to the end, because the main protagonist, Zaylee, is just so unlikable, and I hated her so much. But, like, Prince Enon had such a good, he had a good story arc going from him. He was kind of like the Prince Zuko allegory, and you could see that he was supposed to be, like, the enemy who turned into an ally, then to a friend, then to maybe, like, a lover for Zaylee. And it was so rushed. It was so rushed. It didn't work. It was, like, it works in Avatar because it was a slow burn. Like, you had to work for it. Like, or Prince Zuko had to work for it in order to gain their trust. And it took him a long time to get to that point. And it felt earned. And in here, it was, like, within this, like, a 3-season arc for Prince Enon was shoehorned into one book. And it made me so angry because it could have been so great. And like, he and Zaylee had the most insta-lovey, obnoxious, amateur YA romance I've ever read, and that also made me angry because I feel like this book deserved better, and Tomi Adeyemi she could have done better, and she didn't, and that's why I'm angry, and it's bad, and that's where I'm gonna leave it. Shame on you, Tomi Adeyemi.
Wow. I know. Okay, well, next we got Vicious by V.E. Schwab, and I haven't finished this series. I only read the first one. You read the second one, right?
I've read the second one.
Yeah.
And without the second one, I maybe would have put it in great. But with the second one, I think it's good.
For me, it's kind of in between good and, like, meh. Because it's just, like, obviously, like, we read a lot of fantasy. And this is, like, you know, V.E. Schwab, but it's not really like a fantasy setting. It's more like kind of off-kilter superhero book.
Yes.
Which is not normally like my cup of tea, but like it had good parts, but it was just kind of like the premise isn't something I wouldn't have read it if it, you know, wasn't by V.E. Schwab. So yeah, I can go like with like good, but I'm kind of like meh about it.
Yeah, I appreciate it because that's another book where it's a really fast read. The chapters are super short, so you kind of just fly through it, and then you make it to like halfway point, and it's like, oh wow, like I'm almost done now. But so that's why I like it, and it is entertaining. But like for me, like it falls flat because like the main relationship that this book is centered around, like the friendship, the weird friendship / like rivalry between these two boys, Eli and Victor, I don't think it did for me what V.E. Schwab was intending, which was for it to be a really dynamic, complex, morally gray relationship, and for me it just felt like two like privileged rich boys like having a dick measuring contest with each other, and it was kind of annoying and kind of petty for me to like fully invest myself in it. And the second one, like it was just, I don't think it needed to happen. I don't really think it needed to exist. Like the only reason why I like the second one is because of a new character that was introduced, Marcella, and she was amazing and I loved her, but maybe a little spoiler, I didn't like her ending. That made me not care for the second book as much. So yes, it belongs in good.
Okay. Wow, and next we got
Six of Crows!
Right up
Yes.
top to God. I love Six of Crows.
This is a legendary YA book. You cannot get better than that.
It is. It's everything I want in like YA fantasy.
Yes.
Because I love the cast of characters. I love Kaz. I love a good heist book. I love the fantasy setting. And I think just like every character is so well developed. Like I love it.
Yes. Yes. And it's interesting because there's supposed to be a third book that Lee Bardugo is planning on writing, but I don't know how I feel about that. Like I like it as a duology. I think it works. It suits it being a duology.
It's a really solid duology, and like I would say I'm like cautiously optimistic about a third one because she set up the last one in a way it is open-ended for there to be a third one, and if it's done well, like I think it would be like really good and I would be very interested in reading it, but I think it's also, you know, like kind of a fine line because it could equally kind of I feel like these sequels kind of, you know, unintentionally, like, undo the good, like, plot and character building you did in previous books. But I'm cautiously optimistic. So, you know, hopefully when that happens, it's great. I trust Libra Dugo.
Yes, so 3 Dark Crowns. This is an interesting YA series. I'm on the fence about it now because originally this is a series that was meant to be a duology. It was meant to end at One Dark Throne, and then it was popular, so she wrote 2 more sequels for it, and it should have been a trilogy. Like, if it ended at the 2nd book, I wouldn't have been satisfied, and I would have probably put it in meh. Going into it knowing that there was already a 3rd book coming out, like, I liked it more. And then the 3rd book came out, and I read it, and I was like, this feels like a filler book. I don't think it really needed to be spread out into 4 books, and I kind of feel like it's dragging a little bit right now, and I kind of lost interest in it in the time that I was waiting for the 4th book to come out, and now I'm just not really excited for it anymore. So, like, it's I like it. I do like it, but it's not, like, great, and also, like, there's a romance in the 1st book that kind of follows into the next sequels, and I just am so annoyed with it every time I see it, and it's such a big part of the book that it's like, I don't know, like, should I be mean, or should I, like, it depends on how harsh I should be on it. Like, I don't think it's a meh, and I don't think it's bad. I'm gonna put it in good because I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt because I haven't read the 4th and the last book yet, but it's like, it's kind of a roller coaster for me. Like, I'll really like it, and then it's like, oh, no, never mind. And then I'll really like it again, and then it's like, oh, wait, never mind. So, we'll see how it ends. And now we have Red Rising by Pierce Brown, which this is going right up into God tier for me. I like this book. I don't really like I don't really care for sci-fi books that much. Like, I enjoy sci-fi movies, but for some reason, when it's in, like, a book form, like, there's something about it that I can't really get into, and I think it's because, like, maybe sci-fi just doesn't translate that well into, like, the written word. But Red Rising was the exception for me, and I think it's because it follows a lot of, like, fantasy tropes, and even though it's, like, it is absolutely 100% in, like, full-on sci-fi, like, outer space epic, but, like, really liked it, and I love these characters, and I love the chemistry that they have with each other, and, like, the friendships in here are just so like, heartwarming, and, like, everything in this book feels earned, and that's why I think I love it so much, is because, like, the main characters go through so much, and so that when they have, like, little, like, wins and, like, or victories in their battles, and, like, both externally and internally, it just feels so good. And Pierce Brown's so good with timing and with pacing, and it's like he's just perfect. Like, Pierce Brown himself is like a god. Like, I love him so much, and I love this book. Thank you. Like, you made me kind of open the doors to sci-fi books for me. Like, I love it. That's all I'm gonna say.
I think I know what it is. With the common theme with our God tier books is they all have wings on the cover.
Yeah.
Also, we got, where's the snitch? The snitch is up in here. It's got little tiny wings. Okay.
Yeah.
We love books with the wings on the cover. It has nothing to do with the literature. Okay, and next, okay, we gotta go. Okay, I don't know if I can quite give this God tier. I'm gonna put this in almost God tier, but I love The Lives of Lamora, and so here's the thing about it, though. Like, I almost DNF'd it. I was really close to, because the first half of the book for me was, you know, like, pretty slow. But there was definitely a lot of, like, world building and, like, character development that was, like, necessary for the end, so I understand. But then you get, like, halfway through the book, like, probably, like, right in the middle, and you're like, oh my god, this is so good, because you're just going up this, like, steady roller coaster, like, hill, and then it's just, like, and you're like, oh my god, and then, like, suddenly everything that happened in the beginning, you're like, oh my god, it makes sense, it's, like, totally worth it. And, like, I love it. The characters are so well developed. I love Locke Lamora. He is great and witty, and I just, yes, so good. I need the 4th one. I hope it comes out this year.
I still need to read it. But yeah, so speaking of a book that I have read, Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. I know a lot of people love this book, and like it even received an award, so like it's definitely a very beloved book, but I am going to put it in great. Not almost God and not God, because like even though the book is very well written, I was really invested in it. Like I needed to read the sequel like right away after I finished it. And there's just like a few like I think creative decisions that I didn't necessarily agree with in this book, and a lot of this book does have to deal with like teenage like sexuality and like, you know, like moving in from like boyhood to adulthood and discovering like all these things about like yourself and and like sexuality and stuff like that. And I can imagine like to a 16-year-old, like the target demographic for this book, it'd be like, wow, like so relatable. But you know, like with me, like I'm an adult, I read this, it was just kind of like, guys, like you gotta like there's something really bad happening, like there's a war going on, like we got better things to like worry about right now instead of just making out with your girlfriend. Like I'm sorry, like just you need to get to the point. So I think because of that, like I don't think it's as good as like everyone says, but like the writing was really strong and I did care about the characters. So yeah, good book.